I knew the body innately heals. It can't not.
A pocket of energy within myself.
This is for your mother. So just do this for her.
Let's figure out ways that we can actually use pleasure to come together and bring healing.
It's a modality where we go into your subconscious and change some of those limiting beliefs.
I'm Susan Marco, clinical hypnotist, and I have so many friends and people who have had big impact on my life, so I want to share them all with you. Hi, everybody. Susan Marco here with Trance Talks, and today I'm so honored to have this beautiful woman, Sky, who is, we met just recently, actually, but I love her energy, and also she's an amazing photographer. So if you like her on Facebook, you'll get to see some beautiful photography. But what Sky, you're welcome. What Sky actually does is she is a forest therapy guide. So she takes people out into nature, forest bathing. So if you haven't heard about this, you need to. And if you have, she's your girl. So without getting into too much of me talking, because you guys know I could go on and on, I'm going to just pass the microphone over to you, Sky, and ask you to please tell my listeners, you know, what is forest bathing and how did you get to be that amazing guide?
Oh, well, first, thank you so much for having me here today. And just, I usually like to start things with a little land acknowledgement. So, you know, just to acknowledge where I am, where you guys are. I am here in New Jersey, up in the north, Summit, and actually all of New Jersey is home of the Lenape people, who were the first original people. So when we start a forest therapy walk, a forest bathing walk, we usually talk about the land and who was here first. And we do a little acknowledgement. So thank you for letting me share that. So yeah, how did I get into this? So as a kid, I always wanted to be outside. And I'm sure lots of people can relate to that. Yeah. So I actually usually felt more comfortable outside than in the house. So growing up, I was just out on the street, in the woods, doing all the things that kids do. Forward to how I actually got into forest bathing as a practice. So forest bathing, the word for it is Shinrin Yuku. It's a Japanese word. It started as a practice, as a formal practice. It started in Japan in the 1980s. When we think of Japan, we don't always know that Japan is about 3/4 forest, covered in forest. And the culture obviously is very steeped in nature. But we also think about like the most dense city, right? Tokyo is like a really dense city. And what was happening in the 1980s is kind of probably what's happening here now, is like the techno craze was so big then, and people were, you know, jammed into these little cubicles, working really long hours, because the work culture there is just, you know, the extreme, right? So actually the government initiated a nationwide program of Shinrin-yuku, forest bathing, which translates to mean immersing yourself in the forest atmosphere. And the reason why they did that is because they knew about the health benefits of being in the forest. And they wanted to get people back out into the forest because so many people were experiencing all different kinds of illnesses. I mean, it's happening all over now, but I think more so during that time there, it was, they were noticing this. And now if you go there today, you would see like there's different forests designated specifically for forest bathing. And people might go to a specific forest. They might get like a swab. They might take your saliva. They'll probably take your blood pressure before you start the walk. A doctor prescribes you to go on this walk.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then after you go through this experience, this walk, which is led by a guide, they'll probably see what the difference is, right, when you come back. So, it originated there specifically like for the health benefits, which, I mean, all of us know when we get outside, when we walk amongst the trees, when we're at the coast. Actually, the coast is like my number one love. And you guys tuning in are probably all coastal people. I love a forest on a coast. So we all know how we feel when we're out there. But this actually there were some studies done about the actual health benefits. There's things, phytoncides, chemicals that are released from certain trees, which actually boost our immune system. So literally when you're walking outside, it's not every tree, but like pine trees, for instance, release, certain phytoncides, and they're probably having an effect on us, boosting our NK cells. So actually, yeah, I just thought about one of my trainers who got into it because she was a cancer survivor. And when she learned how much benefits come from being outdoors, because she was always an outdoor person, she was like, wow, I can actually share this with other people. Then the association that I was trained through, it's called the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. We refer to it as forest therapy. And there's a tagline that the founder of the association says, and his name is Amos Clifford, that the forest is the therapist, the guide just opens the doors. So as a guide, I'm looking to help people connect more deeply and be in relationship with the forest, with the outdoors. I was a big hiker. I loved a lot of outdoor sports. So I know nature from that angle too, but this is very different. It's about the relational piece and the connection and how we can be with these other beings that are always there for us, always around us. And I'm sure many of you have special connections with trees, with places, with animals.
It's so many things are popping in my mind as you're talking. Like there was a meme recently that has a picture of a forest and the word is broken up to for rest.
Yeah. I saw
So
that.
forest is for rest.
Yes.
The thing you said about pine trees, for me, there is something incredibly nurturing about the smell of a pine forest. And I remember when I was young, in my teen years, we used to go to Homedale. There's a pine forest in Homedale Park. I haven't been there in a long time, but now I want to go back because just that the energy and the feeling, the softness of the pine, and that, really, I love that. And the other thing is when you were just talking about, like, we know nature from our experiences. So maybe as a kid running around outside, or whatever that relationship is. Yesterday I was talking with someone else, and he, in relation to a product that he works with, used the phrasing that, to move from transactional to transformational.
Mm.
And I love that. So what would you share about your own, or some of the things that you've experienced with people that you've guided through those transformations?
That's a good question. When I lead a walk, when I lead an experience, there's definitely a container that I'm creating, and there's things that I'm offering to get people who participate to connect more deeply. But the transformation experiences, or the things that come up for people, really happen because we're slowing down and we're dropping in and we're tuning in to what we're wired to hear, be with. And once that happens, so many things can happen. Like the last walk I led, there were like 3 people who all had connections with someone who had passed, which naturally came up for them. It wasn't like anything. The forest does that. It brings us into these very deep, very quiet places inside ourselves, which allows other things to come in, or people to come in. I remember the first time I went for like an actual forest bathing experience, because I'm someone who was in the woods all the time. I used to like wander around on my own. But I was up at Crepallo with this guy, Mark Roll. And the first thing we did is we went outside, and he just had us like tune in to everything. And some of the things he said, I was just like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Like, we think we're just seeing the forest, but the forest is also seeing us and knows that we're here.
Yeah. I'm going to give you this reflection, and I think that all of our people who are watching or listening, as you're sharing, as you're talking, my nervous system just went. So I feel like you have a naturally calming energy, just you as it is, right? And to put that in combination with, to be held in a space and led into that experience, that transformational experience. Now I haven't done a forest bathing experience with Sky, but now I really want to.
I can't wait.
Yeah. How do you like set up your sessions? Like, do you do one-to-one? Do you do groups? How do you work with people?
Both, both. Yeah, I'm available. I've done both. Lately I've been offering some different groups that I've been putting together. But I've had some experience, and I'm thinking about doing this ecotherapy work, which is more one-on-one. And that's actually something I'm looking to do more of.
What is that?
Any,
How is that different from forest bathing?
it's not that much different, but it just gives more, so it was developed in a different way because it's actually looking at the therapeutic benefits from a therapy lens
Okay.
versus, yeah, so a lot of people who are therapists also bring ecotherapy into what they do. A lot of people who are psychotherapists bring ecotherapy, so they're involved in that therapeutic process with people. And then they bring nature into it. And that's why we always say when we do forest bathing walks that, the forest is the therapist, the guide just opens the door, because we're not, there are some people who are trained therapists and they also go through this training, but a lot of us are not. So we make that distinction. I am hoping to get more involved as well in the therapeutic lens, so to speak. So to bring it in that way. I don't know if I'm even answering your question directly. Maybe I'm like going in circles, but there's a lot of subtleties to this, and I also always say you don't have to go far to go deep.
Right.
Because like Amos Clifford talked about having a whole experience with the tree in a parking lot. And I'm sure many of us can share these experiences that we had.
Yeah.
But it's just so different when you realize that you're in partnership with the forest or with these beings around you, that you're not just there taking a walk, which is walking's great for exercise too. I think there was a huge difference when I realized that. Then I had to change up my routines. It was like, oh, I might go for a hike today, but tomorrow I'm going for a forest bathing walk, which is a whole different thing. But yeah, I do both groups and one-on-one.
It's to me, it feels like the ultimate mindfulness practice, of being present.
Yeah, because we are wired to hear these sounds, you feel the breeze, it's all about being in our sensory experience. And when I used to teach yoga years ago, and I used to always say that's why we love yoga so much, because it brings us into our sensory experience. I feel like when we go out into the woods and we're really opening up, instead of just like, we go out, we walk, we talk with people, it takes us away from all that's happening. And yeah, so we aren't mindful a lot when we're taking those walks, So yeah.
Yeah, and I like also the idea of the Japanese that concept of how in this culture and currently in life, technology is everything we do, we're in these things, or we're in the computer, or we're and that finding that balance and actually utilizing the planet that we live on, right? Like this is it's our home and it's meant to sustain us
Yeah,
as beings. And I think we've forgotten a little bit of that.
we totally have. That's what I hope to help people remember, you know.
Yeah.
Someone who I went through training with, he brought up some kind of study or something that was done that said people now we spend about like 80% of our time indoors during our week. When you think about, because like even like when we go in our car, at least we're going, but we're still inside, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you might schedule a walk during the morning. I do too. I'm stuck in this matrix of, you know, like I was just outside in the forest this morning, but you know, we've become a people of the indoors,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not wired that way.
Yeah.
I
Well, I am inspired. I mean, I just love the idea of, I guess for me personally, I've gotten a little bit derailed from that because also when I was a kid, I used to love to be outside, and as I got older, the forest is like one of my happy places. Like, don't get me wrong, I love to be at the shore or at the beach, but really, if I want to recharge or if I want to fill my soul, the thing that really speaks to me is the forest. So this resonates for me in a big way. And I love that this exists. I love that there are people like you who know a little more than the average person about how to tune in, how to connect with that energy. And yeah, thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you for being a person who's drawn to it, and also, yeah, for being someone who's, you know, the forest is your place. I
Yeah.
think it's so many of our places, right? The outdoors is our place, whether we're in a forest, whether we're by the ocean, whether we're in a park, or, you know, wherever you are. I was with people the other night and we were up in like the Morristown area, which is an area actually outside Morristown, and it was like still. And when we came out, it's like totally dark, and you hear the you know, the crickets, and we're like, wow, like we don't usually have this where we live, right? But then I was like, but actually we do, because if you just set the intention, walk out your door and say, I'm going to just listen to all the sounds right now, see what I hear, you'll start to hear all the nature sounds in a way you haven't before, because you're tuned into it. I very rarely now, like, first thing I hear is the bird song. That's like what my ears tune into, you know? And actually bird song is like, has such a calming effect on us. It's like we were meant to hear them sing.
Yeah.
You know. Go ahead.
You go ahead. I was just going to say that's so beautiful, that thought.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's like all these things that are here for us to interact and be with. We, like you said before, we've forgotten. I did lead a Zoom forest therapy experience, and I actually brought in sounds, different nature sounds through Zoom.
Cool.
And it was amazing how we all dropped into this place. It affects us so much when we hear water, streams, water, when we hear bird song, when we hear wind. Yeah.
Well, when you take someone on when you do a session, how long is it usually?
Well, when I do groups or just individual, are you talking about, or
Both or either?
So ideally, like 3 hours is a good amount. I've done 2 hours too. I think I've done some things, like I once did it for a class in New York City in Central Park, which was a very cool experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was very different to do it there. And I did something for the town here in Westfield. And people request different time windows, so I can really do it. You could do it in an hour, but I prefer like at least 2 hours that people could really drop in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you want to share?
Things were coming to me as we were talking, but it's hard to.
As it goes in conversation sometimes, right?
Yeah, and it just goes and then it goes away.
Comes and goes.
Yeah. I guess I just hope that people are remembering to get outside and to experience this planet that we live on. And even if you're not going far away on travels, there's so much right here in our own neighborhoods. I don't know, like if you're familiar with your watershed, what your watershed is. Little things like that you can find out about where you live, and just helps you connect more. Yeah, and I hope that I'll see everyone on a walk someday.
Well, I was going to say to those of you watching, if this feels interesting to you and something you would like to do, excuse me, Sky and I had chatted briefly about the possibility of, I would love to put something together if we have enough people who want to do it. Let's get a group and we'll plan something for the fall. And have a little experience, do a little guided thing. And not little, but to actually have this experience with you, I think would be really lovely. So I'm putting that out there. And in the meantime, if people want to reach out to you for other reasons for themselves or for, some other plan, what would be the best way for people to contact you?
So I'm in the process of working on a website, but right now I am on something called Forest Bathing Finder. If you go onto that website, you could look up guide and put in Sky Schenkel.
Yeah. We'll put that in the show notes as well. So, if you don't have to necessarily remember it from now, you'll see that in the show notes.
Yeah. And also I have email, skyhawkwalks@gmail.com. And we're offering something this weekend, though it might be changed to the fall, but it's a forest retreat for grief support.
Yeah.
Myself and Gina DeArchangel, who's a licensed social worker. And that's happening in Watchung Reservation, which is
so by the time this episode airs,
that's right, it'll
be past, but it's good for people to know that that's one of the possible applications, right? If somebody wanted to put together something.
Definitely. Yeah. there's all different ways to support people, you know, and the forest is here for all of us. And I love working in partnership with the forest to like support you. So we always say the forest has our back, you know.
Yeah, I love that. And I thank you so much, Sky, for taking the time to come and have this chat with me. And I look forward to, you know, what unfolds.
Yes. And thank you. Thank you for the work you do and that you offer these talks. Yeah. And I'd love to hear more about your work too.
Yeah, we'll chat, don't worry.
Yes.
But it's my pleasure to have you, and thanks again. And I'll see you all next episode. Have a great day.
Okay. Have a great day.